Hey everybody, how's it going today? Going good with me. So I worked on this thing last night and I got a bunch of more POR done to it, POR15 put on it. And you saw the video there, I got the cowl out, I got the new one set in place, I know where it's going to go. But I wanted to lay some POR down before I did all that, put it all back together, and I'm going to start doing that here pretty quick. But I thought, I don't know how many of you guys have used POR in the past or how many of you are thinking about using it on a project you have. But I'm going to give you some information about POR that might help you. Hopefully it'll make things easier for you, okay? So let me show you what I've done, and then we'll go over what suggestions I have for you. These are basically the do's and the don'ts of using POR15. And let me say right off the bat here, give you a disclaimer, I don't work for POR, I don't represent them, I don't even know where their office is. So it doesn't matter to me if you use that product or you use another product. I don't care. But whether you use POR, and I know there's other brands out there that do the same thing they do. No matter which one of these products you use, there's probably good advice to follow what I'm telling you. And what I say is not by any means an expert opinion. It's just my opinion. So again, you can take my advice with a grain of salt. If you want to maybe get some paper and a pen and write some stuff down, that might help you. Or watch this video, save it and watch it. If you ever decide to do some POR stuff, it might help you. I'm just trying to help people out, knowing what I know. I've used this stuff more than once, and it's kind of finicky stuff. So let me give you my do's and don'ts as far as using POR. And before I start on that, what does POR mean? Well, POR means paint over rust. And they claim, POR claims, you can literally paint this stuff right over the top of rust. You can put it on with a brush, you can spray it on. Most people, I think, brush it on with a paintbrush. So, yeah, that's what they recommend. So I don't know what the 15 means, but I'm guessing maybe they had to try it 14 times, and then the 15th time was when it worked out. I don't know. Because if you guys have ever heard the story of WD-40, and if you watch my channel, if you're watching my channel, I'm sure you probably know what WD-40 is. Almost everybody does. So WD-40 stands for water displacement or water displacing 40. And what that means is when they developed WD-40 back, I don't know, in the 40s and 50s, whenever they did it, almost 80 years ago, when they developed it, they kept trying different formulas. And they tried it 39 times and failed. On the 40th try, it succeeded. And they were trying to find a product that would, if you sprayed it on water, it would displace the water. It would push the water out of wherever you're spraying on. It would eliminate it. And that's what WD-40 is meant to do. That's why it's called water displacing. So the 40th try was when they succeeded. So they decided to name it WD-40. And the rest is history. Everybody knows what WD-40 is, right? Right. Okay, so let's get started on this POR15 stuff. Okay, so first thing, well, you know what? Let me get back in front of the screen here. First thing you want to understand about POR is the cost, okay? You need to figure out how much you're going to use, how much you think you're going to need, and I'll give you an example from what I've done, and maybe that might help you decide how much you need. But you can buy what's called a 6-pack, which sounds like a good deal because POR has a shelf life, okay? Once you open it up, it tends to dry out fairly quickly, 4 to 6 months. So you want to use it as soon as you open it, you want to use it as quickly as possible. I mean, if you can't, you can't. But again, it's not cheap, so you don't want to waste your money, okay? Now here's the deal. So on a 6-pack, I looked online, a 6-pack is about 60 bucks. Okay, yeah, that'll sound bad, but here's the thing. It's 6 4-ounce cans, so they're very tiny, small cans, okay? So I figured that out, and that equals out to $2.50 an ounce. That's pretty expensive stuff, okay? Now, you can also buy quart cans of it, and a quart can is about 70 bucks. So that figures out to be about $1.25. No, I'm sorry, about $2. Let's see, what did I write? Okay, $2 and about $2.25 an ounce that way. So it's not a whole lot cheaper than the 6-pack is. However, you can buy it in gallon cans, which is 124 ounces, 128 ounces, I'm sorry. And you can buy a gallon of POR15 for about 160 bucks, okay? That's the cheapest place I found it online, and I'll actually show you the website that I found it on. And that equals out to $1.25 an ounce, which is half the price of the smaller stuff. So the larger portions you buy, the cheaper it is, of course, just like about anything else. So anyhow, but if you buy a gallon, you need to make sure you need a gallon. So let me show you what a gallon, and I bought a gallon, okay? I bought a gallon. Actually, my brother bought a gallon, and I bought a couple gallons because I've got a lot to do. He had something to do on his car. We've opened 1 gallon and done, and I'll show you what we did with 1 gallon. I mean, this stuff, it sounds expensive, but it literally goes a long ways. And let me show you what I mean by that, okay? So let me get my other phone, and then I'll show you guys where I found the price of that stuff for $1.25 an ounce for the gallon for $160. Let me get that phone real quick. All right, hold on. Okay, guys, here it is. It's a company called Eagle National Supply. So they have POR15 in gallons, and it's $157.99. And I think that might have included, I can't remember if that included free shipping or not, but I mean, that's the cheapest I was able to find it. And you can see they did have it for $220, so that you save 28%. But that's the cheapest I've found it so far. So that's a good idea if you guys kind of an idea where you can start at. You know, there's obviously places you can get it locally, but you know, it depends on how quickly you need it. But I ordered this, and it was shipped to me. I had it within, I think, 3 days, so it's not bad. But that's the best price I've found so far for POR15. Okay. Put the phone down here. All right. Now, the other thing you have to remember about POR is you cannot put it on a surface that's going to be exposed to sunlight, okay? It'll after a while, it'll start deteriorating in sunlight. But let me show you what we did with 1 gallon of it, just to give you an idea of how far a gallon went. So we'll come over here to this car here. This is my brother's 64 Triumph Spitfire that he's restoring. So he did the entire bottom side of the 64 Triumph, the whole thing, okay? And then he did inside. He did not do the trunk. He needs to do that still, but he did the whole inside interior all the way down. He did under the dash, the kick panels, all of it. All of that was done. Okay, that's what he did with what he used. Now, here's what I did. Here's an old hood that came with this truck that's kind of in good shape, but it's got neat. Yeah, I've been having to do a lot of work to make it look decent, but Bo don't want it because he wants a one-piece hood. He doesn't want this split in the middle. So I did the underside of this hood. I had it blasted, and I did the underside of the hood, okay? And then I'm not going to flip it over, but if you look underneath here, or if you watch my videos, you'll see that I did, well, here on the front, there's some pitting on the front and some pitting underneath that was rust pitting, and I covered it with POR because I want to sand it off and see how good it does to fill in pitting. So I did probably about a third of that hood, okay? Here's my new cowl that I'm going to put in this truck. I did that whole cowl, okay? Here's my speaker covers that I showed you guys in my other video. I did 2 of those on the inside. These are the, dadgummit. These are the stake bed pockets that go on the bed. I did 4 of those on the inside. I did, oh, and yeah, there's a piece of rusty metal that that I painted, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. Okay, I did the inside of this cab, the floor. I also did the bottom side underneath of this floor. So it's done on both sides, top and bottom. I didn't do the rocker panels because they're exposed and they're going to be painted. I did the back of the cab, all the way around, back of the cab, from one side to the other. I did all that. I did the inner part of the truck here where the cowl goes. I did the back of the dash. I wasn't going to do the back of the dash, but last night when I got finished up, I had a little bit left in the can and I wanted to use it up, so I just put a really thin coat on the back of the dash just to kind of make it, to finish off what I had. Okay, and of course I did all inside of the cowl areas on both sides, all inside, all up in there, all in there, all that's done. This one here is the same way, all inside the cowl. You know, everything I could reach was done, all that, okay? And then these are the cowl pieces that I'm putting new ones in on the bottom of the kick panels where the cowl's at. So I did both of those on the back side. I did a couple little pieces there. This is the piece that goes in the floor to cover up that rectangle piece that's missing. So this is the cover that goes over that. I did a couple, there's these two pieces go in the dash. They bolt to the cowl, so I had to take them off. So I cleaned those up and did those. There's the old air cleaner off this truck, off the 6-cylinder engine. I just did it just for fun. Here's the outer cowl pieces. I did 2 of those on the inside, so they're done. Then we come over here, and there's the other 3 stake bed pockets I did. And then on these bed sides, I did the ends, both ends of them, where the stake bed pockets are going to get welded in place, because once they're welded in place, I won't be able to get to that. So I POR'd them first, and then I'll weld them in place. And that's the other piece I did that goes underneath the dash. That's for the vent, the lever for the vent, for the hood, for the cowl vent. So anyhow, we did all of that, and it only took 1 gallon to do all that. So that gives you an idea of how far this stuff goes. It goes a long ways. It really does. Okay, now, if you're going to do POR, what's the best way to go about doing it? So here's a gallon can, just so you know. That's what it looks like. That's a gallon can of POR. All right, the first thing you want to do is you want to plan ahead. POR is a very thin product when it comes out of the can. As a matter of fact, if I remember right on the website, they say you can thin it, but they only recommend you thin it 5%, because it could probably literally be sprayed on a out of a paint gun right out of the can. I think it probably could be. I don't know for sure, but I think it probably could be. Trying to figure out where I'm going to sit here. All right, let me sit. Get my camera set up here. Sorry guys, I accidentally set my camera off there. All right, I was trying to get it on the mount. Okay, now we're going to go over a few things here. Let me sit down in here, get comfortable. And this, I painted it last night, and I can sit on it. You know, it's dry 24 hours later, so it's good to go. Okay, now, here's what I recommend you do if you're going to do POR15. All right, first of all, you want to, well, one thing you have to remember is when you put POR15 on anything, you can't put it on a surface that's going to be exposed to sunlight. So for example, I could not put it on this surface out here, because this is exposed to sunlight when the vehicle's driven. And you probably don't want to put it on there anyhow, because it's going to be painted. But I'm just saying, anything like, say you got a bare frame, or you know, a motorcycle frame, you don't want to put POR on a motorcycle frame, because it's going to be exposed to sunlight, and eventually it's going to get a cloudy look to it. Now you can put it on there, and then you can let it dry, and you can sand it and paint over the top of it. You can do that, okay? So if you want to do that, you can. But they don't recommend you putting on any surface that's going to be exposed to sunlight, okay? So that's that. All right, now, if you're going to put POR on a vehicle, what's the best way to go about doing it? Well, let me tell you the do's and don'ts of doing POR. First of all, you need to plan ahead, okay? You need to plan ahead for how much work you got to do and how long you think it's going to take you to do it. Because and I'll explain it a little bit more as we go along. This stuff is kind of, like I said, it's kind of finicky to work with. You don't just brush it on and walk away. Trust me, you don't. You have to babysit it, okay? So you need to understand that if you're going to do, you know, a large surface, like say if I'm going to do this floor, if it's a flat surface like this, I can paint it on and, you know, check on it a little bit. It's pretty much good. But if you're doing a vertical surface like the back of this cab, then you have to babysit it. If you're doing like that hood over there I showed you guys, you have to babysit it, and I'll explain why. So you have to make time. Make sure you have time to not only put it on, but to sit around for probably, depending on the temperature outside or wherever you're at. If you're in a garage like I am, you have to make time to make sure that it's going to stay put where you put it before you walk away from it. And I'll explain that. Okay, so that's the first thing you do. The second thing you need to be concerned with is the temperature outside, the weather. I don't know if humidity affects it. Probably wouldn't. I mean, obviously you can't do it outside if it's raining, but if you're doing it inside in a garage like this, humidity is probably going to slow down the drying process. So again, you're going to have to take the time to babysit it. If it's a warm sunny day outside and it's nice, then it'll dry a lot quicker. And of course, the warmer the temperature is, the quicker it dries. I would not recommend doing it when it's below 60 degrees or above 80 degrees, because below 60 degrees takes forever to dry. I know because I did it the other night and it was like 55 degrees outside, and I had to sit here for like 3 hours after I was done putting it on and watch it because it keeps running because it's so thin. But if it's too hot, it's going to dry too quickly. And if it gets runs in it and you don't catch it, then you're going to have runs in your material. Now, you may not care about it. Like, for instance, the back of this cab, it's going to all be covered eventually anyhow. So if I get a run in that, it's not a big deal because it's not going to be shown. So it's no big deal. The underside of that cowl, same way. You know, it's not going to be seen unless you crawl underneath the dash. So if it's got a run in it, it's no big deal. Now, the underside of that hood is a different story, because when you raise the hood up on that truck, whatever happens to that hood, if it goes on another truck, if you raise the hood up, you can see underneath there. So you don't want runs in it. Now, of course, again, you can sand them out, and you can spray paint over the top of that, but you don't have to on a hood because it's not exposed to the sun. The underside of it's not exposed to the sun, so it's not going to hurt anything. So you could, and that's why I did the underside of that hood, because it's not going to be exposed to the sun, so no big deal. And the other thing you have to consider is insects, okay? This stuff takes a while to dry normally, unless it's really hot out. It takes a while to dry. Last night when I worked on this, doing this stuff in here, it was probably around 65, maybe 68 degrees in here when I was putting this stuff on here. And it took it probably a good hour to an hour and a half after I finished before it got to the point to where I didn't have to worry about babysitting anymore. So, you know, again, you gotta think about that when you think about time. You know, the warmer it is, the quicker it's going to dry, but also the warmer it is, the quicker you got to get it put on, and the quicker you got to check for any problems that you need to fix. And talking about insects, I don't know how well you guys can see this, but last night when I was painting this speaker cover, or speaker mount, I should say, that's going to go inside the truck, you can see I had a little friend come visit me, and he's stuck on there, okay? Now, if you get something like this, what do? Well, most people want to try to pick that sucker out of there, but they always tell you the best thing to do is leave it alone, let it sit there, let it dry, and then when it's dry, try to pick off what you can. And if it's a surface that's going to be exposed, which of course these aren't going to be because they can't be exposed to sunlight, you can sand that out and either recoat it or whatever. But I just left him on there. I'm gonna pick him off, but this is the back side of this speaker cover. This is the exposed side. I didn't POR it. I'm gonna paint it. The inside of the truck's gonna be painted. So, you know, my little buddy back there, he's gonna hang out for eternity. No big deal. Okay, so that's the other thing you have to remember. The warmer it is, the more insects there are, and this stuff takes so long to dry that if there's a lot of insects in the air, you're gonna have to worry about insects getting in your paint job. So you got to be careful. Okay, and also I recommend you don't paint in direct sunlight, because sunlight's going to make it dry faster. If it's, you know, if it's 70 degrees outside, but you're outside and there's no wind, and the sun's shining on it, or even if there is a little bit of a breeze, it's going to dry very quickly. You may not, if you're doing a lot of areas like this, I recommend doing it indoors or at least in the shade, you know, where you don't have to worry about sunlight drying it out quickly. So that's what you need to do to plan ahead. Step 2 is, well, that's step 2, the weather. Step 3 is materials. What materials are you going to need to do this? Again, you have to plan ahead. Okay, so you're going to need paint brushes. And here's what I did, because I'm going to be doing a lot of it. I went to Harbor Freight and I bought this. You can see that. It's a pack of 36, they're called chip brushes. And I think I paid like $14 or $15 for 36 of these. Now that's more than I'm going to need, but it's better than buying, you know, 1 or 2 for almost the same price. So I bought the whole thing, and my brother and I are both using that. So no big deal. But you can get those from Harbor Freight. But the thing you have to remember about these is they shed bristles once in a while, okay? So as you're putting the stuff on, and that's one of my don'ts, is don't ignore the fact that a bristle might come off of this brush. If it does, you have to watch for it. You have to look at it after you apply the POR. You have to look at it, and if you see a bristle that's come off your brush, what I was doing, I was taking the brush, and I would take the brush with the POR and I would kind of stick it underneath, shove it underneath of the bristle and pick it up with the brush, and I'd shake the brush like this and knock it off. You can pick it up with your fingers.
Playing from Dave's S21 Ultra.
Thanks, Alexa. I don't know why you keep telling me that. Anyhow, if you pick it up with your fingers, you're going to get it all over your hands and you're going to make a mess. So I recommend trying to use your brush to pick it up out of there, then shake your brush and knock it off. And then keep on, then brush it over the area again, of course, because you just messed it up when you tried to pick it up. So paint, you're going to need lots of brushes. That way, if one gets really dirty or you drop it on the floor, you know, or whatever, then you can just grab another one real quick. And that's nice to have. Okay, and the other brushes you're going to need is wire brushes. Okay, again, I got these from Harbor Freight. You can see there's a 6-pack of them there. I think they were like, well, I got a couple of them on sale for $2.99, but they're like $4. They're not that expensive. You can use them in a drill, and they work really good for taking the rust off, cleaning up the surface, preparing it for the POR. So that works really well. You're going to need that. You're going to need gloves. Lots of gloves. These are just cheap latex gloves. You know, the good thing about these is if you have a whole handful of them laying there where you're working, you know, if they start getting really dirty, take them out, throw them away, grab a clean set. No big deal. Okay? You're also going to need paper towels. Paper towels are good for wiping up messes. If you say, for instance, I'm POR in this area and I drip and it starts running down this surface here. I don't want it there, so I can grab a paper towel and I can wipe it off. Now, it's not going to come off all the way, so you're also going to want some either carburetor cleaner or brake cleaner. You can get this stuff from Walmart. It's like $3 or $4 a can. What I do ahead of time is I'll take paper towels and I'll get like 3 or 4 of these off the roll, and I'll fold them up until they're a quarter of the size they should be. And then, so it's a nice thick pad. And then if I get a drip like this and I don't want it on there, or let's say for instance I'm painting this area and I get a drip and I don't see it, and 30 minutes later I notice there's a drip on there starting to dry. It's wanting to stick. So then what you do, you spray a little bit of this on there, and it takes it right off. Okay, spray a little bit of this on your paper towels, takes it right off, no problem. So you want to have some of that handy. Okay. Let's see, what else do we need? It's a good idea to have an air compressor handy if you have one, because when you clean the surfaces before when you're preparing to do this, and you're cleaning the rust, you want to try to blow that off when you're done. You know, wire brush it and then blow it off. Okay, so it's a good idea to have an air compressor. If you don't have one, then you could just use like a little whisk broom or something, but you want to try to get all that stuff off there, or maybe if it's a small piece, you can just shake it off there, you know. But you want to have something you can rub, and you actually, come to think of it, if you have these paint brushes, you could actually, if you had an area you were cleaning off, you could just brush the dust off like that way. You know, whatever after you got in the wire brush, you could brush it off with that. Okay, but a the air compressor comes in handy for cleaning that. Another thing you're going to want pieces of cardboard. So you're going to want, I don't know if you can see the floor of this, I'll show you in a minute if you can't, but underneath of this cab, I got a big huge piece of cardboard because this stuff is thin and it drips. So if it gets on your garage floor, it's not coming off. I mean, if you grab your carburetor cleaner and your paper towels and you're quick, you can spray a paper towel carburetor cleaner and scrub it and it'll come off. But if you don't, if you drip it on the floor and you're trying to hurry and get it done and you don't see it and it sits there for 30 minutes, it's stuck there. You're going to scrape it off and it's going to stay there. So, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute too. So anyhow, let's see, what else do we need? Rags, you know, if you don't want to use paper towels, you can use old rags, you know, old towels or t-shirts or whatever you have. And let's see. Oh, a mask or a respirator. So this stuff has a really strong odor. It's like a really strong solvent. It smells like solvents. It smells like paint thinner or gasoline. It's a really strong odor. If that bothers you, if you think you might get a headache from it, number one, you need to have good ventilation, okay? Don't get in a garage that's enclosed and close the doors and put this stuff down because you're gonna make yourself sick, okay? And you also wanna remember, if you're in a building that has a hot water heater that's gas or a stove that's gas or something, and it's got a pilot light in it, you probably ought to not do it there because this stuff is flammable. It's, you know, you don't want to have an explosion, obviously. So that's another safety feature you need to think about. Make sure you do it in a place where you don't have to worry about fumes getting to any kind of a flame, okay? But again, you want to have ventilation. So, you know, if you can do it outside, that's great. But if you can't, if you're going to do it in a garage, open the doors. You know, if you have to, put a fan in the door, blowing fresh air in, so you got fresh air constantly coming in, pushing the fumes out, okay? So that's the other thing you got to remember. And if it really bothers you a lot, you can always get a respirator with, you know, the replaceable cartridges on it and use those. That would help you as well. But it depends on your sensitivity to it. Tell you the truth, when I do this, I don't use anything because I've done so much of this in my life that these smells don't bother me anymore. But you definitely want to have a respirator or a mask if they do bother you. Okay. Now, another thing you want to do to prepare for this, you know, like I said, you want to have the wire brushes, but you can also have stuff blasted. If you got a little media blaster, you know, one of those little portable ones, you can blast it that way. If you got large pieces like this truck, we had a professional sandblaster come out and sandblast them and clean them up really good. And so that's bare metal. Now, POR will tell you when you call them, if you talk to them, they will tell you, oh, you need our metal prep and you need our cleaning product and you need all this stuff. Well, you know, it's very expensive. You know, if you buy their stuff, it's very expensive. To me, it's a lot easier to just wire brush the stuff, clean it up. I mean, the floors of this truck are new. So if you watch my other videos, you'll see I took what's called Scotch-Brite pads. And here, let me just grab one and show it to you. So you can buy these at the local parts store. You can buy these at the local parts store. So this is what they look like. It's a Scotch-Brite pad. You can scrub, if you got a primer surface like this is, a brand new surface, then you can scrub it with a Scotch-Brite pad and scuff it up, and it's ready to paint at that point. I mean, all I did besides this was I blew it off with an air hose, obviously, because it had dust on it from me using this on it. And then I wiped it down with a paper towel, and it was just a dry paper towel. Another thing you want to remember, another don't want to do is you don't want to use a solvent type cleaner like paint thinner, because this stuff is a water-based product and solvents don't do well with it. If you wipe it down with a solvent and there's any of it left on there, even after it dries, and you put this on there, it may not stick. So what I recommend is you use wire brushes or a Scotch-Brite pad, whatever, and you scrub the surface down, you wire brush it down, and then you blow it off with a blowgun, and then you wipe it down with a rag, a dry rag, you know, and it's good to go. It's ready to paint at that point. Another question that I've seen a lot of people have is, can you put POR on brand new metal? Yes, you can. This speaker enclosure is a brand new steel. You can see that. Again, what I did with it, I took the Scotch-Brite pad and I scrubbed it with a Scotch-Brite pad, and then I wiped it off. I blew it off with a blowgun from the air compressor, and then I hopefully you guys can see me. I'm standing up there, you probably can't even see me. So I cleaned it off with a Scotch-Brite pad, like I said, and blew it off with my blowgun, and then I wiped it down with a rag and coated it. And as you can see, this was done yesterday, and it looks real nice. Turned out great, and it stuck really well. So yes, you can use this on new steel. You can also use it over paint. Like if I wanted to put it on a surface that was painted, you know, like, I mean, up here is painted, but obviously I'm not, well, that's not painted now. It's been blasted. But if you got a car part, say like a fender, and the inside of it's got some paint on it, as long as you sand it and clean it, and the paint isn't peeling or chipping off, if it's adhering to the metal really well, then yeah, you can put POR over the top of it. But if you got paint that's peeling or flaking or whatever, you don't want to put POR over it, because if the paint comes off, the POR is going to come off with it because it's over the top of it. So you got to remember that too. So yes, you can put it over paint. You can also put it on aluminum. It works on aluminum too. You just got to scuff it up with a Scotch-Brite pad, and you know, clean it, wipe it off with a rag, blow it off with a blowgun, and clean it, and it'll work just fine. And also have been told that it works on fiberglass. So if you got a Corvette and you want to put POR on that, you can put POR on it, they say. I'm not sure why you want POR on a Corvette, but they say you can do it. One thing I did see is if you have like a little small pinhole in a piece of metal, say an area is rusted out and it's a very small, like maybe the size of my finger, a hole, you can take a little piece of fiberglass mat and you can put POR on that metal, and then stick the mat to the POR, and then put more POR over the top, and when it dries, it'll cover that hole up. I wouldn't recommend it obviously for a big hole like this, but on a little tiny hole, you know, that maybe the size of your finger or about the size of a dime, you could, you know, take a little piece of fiberglass mat and put over it, POR that, and it would cover that hole up. Now, you know, I wouldn't do it on an exposed surface like here, but you know, if you got it inside somewhere where you can't see it, or maybe in a floor pan, you're going to put carpet over the top of it, then it's no big deal. You can do that, okay? All right. Here's something else that you want to remember. You need stands and sawhorses, okay? And let me tell you why you need stands and sawhorses to put this stuff on, okay? So last night when I was doing this, I made the mistake of setting these parts on the floor and POR them. Well, I don't know if you can see this or not, but yeah, see those little speckles in that finish? Those little speckles is dust. Okay, that's dust that's on it. Now that's not a big deal, because that's the piece that goes on the floor, and these two pieces here are the kick panels, but that's the inside of them. So once I mount them, you won't even see that, and this here is going to be covered by carpet. But the reason it's got speckles on it from dust is because there's dust on the floor, and as I walked around here painting this thing, I stirred up some dust and it settled on those things. So it's a good idea to raise them up, you know, put them on a stand, put them on a sawhorse, you know, take a piece of cardboard and set it across sawhorses, and you know, put them on that. But don't do it on the floor, because you're going to get dust in it like I did. That's a lesson that I learned last night, a mistake that I made, okay? All right. So other materials you're going to need obviously are, you know, there's some sawhorses there. Here's a little stand I got the cowl panel on, so those come in really handy. And you can buy sawhorses. You can make them out of 2x4s if you want. Now, one thing I was talking about before is babysitting this stuff. What do I mean by babysitting it? Okay, this stuff is really thin stuff. I mean, and you saw how far it goes. I mean, it literally, all this stuff, that, inside and out, this hood, the truck inside and out, the cowl piece, all those little pieces over there, the pieces over there I showed you, all this stuff was done with 1 gallon of paint. So it goes a long ways. But the problem is it's thin. So if you put it on a surface, say for instance on this hood, around these edges here, if you put it on there and you just walk away, you're going to get runs in it, and you're going to be mad at yourself because you got runs in it. So you have to babysit it. And actually, if you look at this here, see that? See those little runs? You can see those runs in it, okay? And there's, see if I can see some more. Oh yeah, there's some on that side. You know, I don't know if you can see them up there or not. There's a few, but anyhow, there's runs, and there's runs in this on the bottom side of this hood. And I put this stuff on, and I did this hood. It was the very first thing I did last night when I started working. So I did it, and it took me about probably 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours to do everything else. Okay, I kept coming back and brushing this. I probably did it 2 or 3 times. I brushed it back over it, trying to get the runs out of it. And even after that long, when I walked away last night, it still had runs in it. So I mean, that's why I'm telling you, you got to plan ahead. You got to make time to do this, because you have to watch this stuff. If you don't, it's going to run on you, and it's going to make you mad, because you're like, oh crap, I walked away and now I got runs everywhere, and I got to try to sand them out. So, and I mean, this isn't terrible. You know, it was a lot worse than this, but I kept brushing it, and it would go away, but then it came back. And I put this stuff on this hood thin. I mean, literally, I put it on very thin. I had, as a matter of fact, last night when I started, I had this can, and it was about 3/4 full. Okay, and I did the hood, I did the cowl, I did inside the floor of the truck, I did the back panel on the truck, I did under the cowl, under the dash on the truck, and I did all those little pieces on the floor I showed you guys. I did all that, and before I ran out of a quart of, before I used all what was left of this. Now, speaking of this, this reminds me of something else. Here's a thing you don't want to do. And it's going to sound weird when I tell you this, but trust me, you don't want to do it. All right, you don't want to take the lid. Well, you don't want to take the lid off the POR when you get it, when you're ready to use it, okay? You want to leave the lid on it. And they tell you you're supposed to stir it and not shake it. Well, how are you going to do that if the lid's on it? Well, what you do is you grab the can. Let me get this little can, I'll show you. You grab the can and you shake it like this in a circle. You don't shake it like this, you shake it in a circle. So that stirs it up inside, okay? You can shake it like this. See that? See how I'm doing that? That's how you can stir it, okay? Don't turn it upside down, don't flip it, don't shake it like this. Just swirl it around like that, okay? Now you're holding the can, you have to hold it with 2 hands with a gallon can. Okay. Now, why do you not want to pull the lid off? Well, you don't want to pull the lid off because if you pull the lid off this thing and you put the lid back on when you're done, and that surface where that lid goes is not absolutely 100% spotless, you'll never get that lid off again. Here's a good example. So the first gallon that we had, my brother used it first. I didn't use it, he used it first, okay? And he cleaned the lid off very well before he put it back on. When I went to take the lid off, here's what the lid looks like. I mean, I literally had to pry it off, pull it off with a pair of pliers. I mean, I absolutely destroyed that lid. And what I ended up having to do was when I was done using it, I had to take saran wrap and wrap it up and try to seal it. And then, but yeah, this is what happens if you don't clean that lid off. And I'm telling you, he was upset. He's like, I cleaned that lid. I had to make sure it was really clean and it looked good. Well, this is what happened. It didn't come off. So how do you get the stuff out of there? Well, what I recommend is you take a couple screws and you put screws in it. A couple. You want one for air ventilation and one for pouring. So you put the screws in the top and then you take both of them out, and when you pour it, obviously it comes out this hole and air goes in that hole so it doesn't, make a mess. But then when you're done, you want to put the screws back in it and then cover the screws up with some good tape, okay? And that also helps extend the shelf life of this stuff. Okay, the shelf life, what I've read online, the shelf life of POR15 is about 4 to 6 months. But what causes POR15 to dry up is exposure to oxygen, obviously. It's paint. So it's actually a good thing to not pull the lid off, because if you put a couple screws in it and you take the screws out, pour it into a small can like this. And these cans here, we bought these at Lowe's. They were like $1.50 a piece. They weren't that expensive. So you take the screws out, you pour what you think you might need into this can, and then you put the screws back in immediately and tape over them. Well, you've only exposed a very small amount of this to the air, and it's only been for a very short time period. This here is not going to last very long, but this here should last quite a bit longer if you do it this way, because you're only exposing it through the 2 screw holes. You're not exposing the whole entire contents by opening the lid up. So that's another reason why I like the idea of not taking the lid off and putting screws in it, okay? And again, when you pour it in here, you don't have to fill these up. Just, you know, if you fill it half full, you think, well, that might be all I'm going to use, so I'm going to fill it half full. And again, it goes a long ways. So fill it half full, or you know, if you got a big project, fill it all the way up, whatever. But when you're done, you want to make sure you use everything that's in the can. You don't want to put any of this back in there. So you don't want to waste it. So you only put in here, you know, it's better to not put enough in there and have to open the can up a second time and put a little more in there than it is to put, you know, too much, and then you're wasting it, throwing it away, because it's expensive stuff. So put whatever you think you're going to need in it, but you want to empty this can out. And what I did when I emptied this can last night, when I was done with it, the lid's okay. What I did is, let me get the, dadgummit, come on, there we go. So when I took the lid off, when I first took the lid off, I immediately took my paper towels, which I told you guys to have, and I cleaned the lid till it was perfectly clean, okay? Made sure I got every tiny drop of POR I could get off of it, okay? And then when I was done, and I made sure the can was empty, I just left the can sitting there like that all night long. Now this stuff's all dry in here, so it's you know, I can pour more POR in there, and it's not gonna make a mess. It's dry, and I can pour more POR out of this in there, and then I can put this lid on it, and it's good to go until I need it. So, but obviously this is what I'm going to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and put screws in this gallon can and fill these up as we need it. And then if there's any left at the end of the day, we can always put this lid on, but of course you want to make sure it's clean. But what I plan on doing is not putting any more in here than I think I'm going to need. Because if there's any left at the end of the day, I'm probably just going to dump it in the trash can or dump it outside, because I don't want to put it back in here, and I can't because it's got 2 screw holes in it. So I'm just going to put in here what I need and then try to use all of it. And, you know, I'll probably put less than I need and then add more as I need it. But anyhow, that's the best way to do it, okay? All right. Now, let's see what else I got written down here. Just trying to remember all this stuff. Okay, so again, when you're putting this stuff on, you're using a paintbrush, you got to watch for hairs. And if you look on this one, yeah, right there, see there's a hair from my brush. There's another one over there. There's one back there. I tried to get them out. There's one over there. I tried to get them out as best I could, but you know, a few of them escaped my vision, so they're stuck in there. But you know, I'm not looking for perfection, so I don't really care. But you got to watch for hairs. And remember, like I said, a little goes a long way. Seriously, guys. I mean, you saw how much I did here, and that was a whole gallon to do all of that. I mean, that's a ton. So you have to remember that too, and you have to make sure you have enough time to, you know, lay this stuff down and then babysit it after it's laid down. Because if you don't, if you care about the finish of it, you need to keep brushing it until it starts getting to the point where it won't brush anymore. Because it's going to have runs in it if you don't, okay? Now, the other thing you want to remember when you're doing this is you want to wear old clothes, okay? Like what I got on. This is old shoes, old pants. You know, this sweatshirt, I wasn't wearing it when I did it, but, you know, it's an old shirt. And I recommend long sleeves, because let me show you what happens. Pull my sleeve up here. So this is what happens when you wear short sleeves. See that? And this that's on my arm, that's from when I did the first video of the first stuff I did like 4 days ago. And obviously I take a shower every day. It ain't coming off. I mean, it's got to wear off. If you get it on your skin, if you get it in your hair, it's not coming out, guys. It's not. It's going to stay in there. You're going to have to either cut your hair. I think I got it in my hair one time. It took like a week for it to come out. So that's why I recommend you wear a hat, you wear gloves, you wear a long sleeve shirt, and you don't want to do it in your shorts because you don't want to get it on your legs, and you don't want to get it on good shoes. So make sure you wear shoes that are old. Another thing, if you drip it on your clothes, like I dripped some on my pants last night. I dripped a little bit of it on my pants. And when I took my pants off last night, there was a stain on my leg underneath the pants. So it soaked through the pants and stained my leg. Well, now I got a permanent stain on my leg that's going to be there for the next 2 weeks. But you got to remember that stuff when you do this. It's really hard stuff to deal with. So make sure you wear the proper clothing when you're doing this, all right? Okay. What else? I think I've covered pretty much everything that you need to know as far as the do's do. Now, here's the don'ts. Okay. Again, I said don't shake it, stir it, but if you swirl it around, if you don't shake it like this, swirl it around, then that's the same thing as stirring it. I would not recommend you open it up and stir it, because if you put that lid back on and there's anything on there, you're not going to get it back off. You saw what that lid looked like that I took off. Again, don't do it on the floor because of dust. I showed you the dust that was on there. And don't get it on anything you don't want it to be on, like your skin, obviously. Your dog. I made Bear stay in the house when I was doing this because I knew sure as the world he'd come out here and somehow get in it. So I left him in the house. You don't want to, let's see. Oh, yeah, shiny surfaces. So like this thing here, this cowl was new when I got it, okay? It had been primed and the primer was kind of shiny. Now the POR will tell you if you get it on, like if I would have gotten it on this side of that without scrubbing it first with the Scotch-Brite pad over there, it doesn't like to stick to shiny surfaces. So what I did last night after I got done painting this thing, putting it on this thing, I took a rag, which I told you guys get rags and some carburetor cleaner. I took some rags, folded them up, sprayed some carburetor cleaner on them, and then I went around and wherever it had come through on this side of it, I took the rag and the carburetor cleaner and wiped it off before it dried, because it won't stick on a shiny surface. So if you get it on a shiny surface, you need to wipe it off. If you get it on your paint on a car, you need to wipe it off, because if you don't and it dries, you're going to have a really hard time getting it off there. And you don't want to get it on the floor, okay? So here's a good example. And Ellen, I mentioned cardboard. See all the cardboard I got underneath here? See all the drips? Made a big mess. Well, I had those little parts over here on a piece of cardboard, okay? And
Playing from Dave's S21 Ultra.
Thank you, Alexa. I don't know why you keep telling me that. Anyhow, I got it on the floor. I had a hole in the cardboard, and it leaked through the hole. Well, now that piece of cardboard stuck to the floor, and I got to try to get it out of there. Of course, there's POR on it. And my brother's going to have a fit because I got it on his floor. But sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so that's about it for that. Just make sure you don't get on anything you don't want it to be on, okay? And again, when you're done painting a surface, you want to remember to check the side that you didn't want it on. Don't walk away and forget that, because I did that. Oh, right here on the dash. See that, what I did last night? I should have wiped this stuff off last night. When I was painting the opposite side, I should have checked this, and I forgot, and now it's on there. And the only way it's going to come off is to get sanded. Fortunately, this is not a shiny surface. It's been blasted, so it's not going to hurt anything. But, I didn't want it on there. I should have wiped it off, and I forgot to. So don't forget to do that, because I did. It happens. Okay. So don't forget to check the bottom side. And the last thing is, you don't want to let it sit for a long time. Again, there's a shelf life on this stuff. It's 4 to 6 months. I've heard guys or read about guys on the internet that they would put it in a refrigerator or even a freezer to try to keep it shelf life longer. But I really think the best thing to do to make it last longer is to put 2 screws in the lid, and don't take the lid off like I said, and tape over them, and that way you're limiting the exposure of it to oxygen when you open it up. So I think that's a good idea. Anyhow, well, I've rambled long enough. So again, those are my do's and don'ts when it comes to POR. I don't know if that's going to help anybody, but if it does, that's good. I'm glad. Trying to get my camera on the mount here. Okay. All right. So if it does help you guys, I'm glad it helped you. But remember, POR is a touchy product. It's not like paint. You don't spray it on and walk away. So you have to plan ahead. You have to think about, you know, if I got paint on my hand, I could get it off with paint thinner. This stuff, it's not coming off. So you have to remember that. Whatever you get it on that you don't want it on, it's not going to come off once it dries. So you just need to plan ahead. Think about what I told you as far as preparation, you know, prepping the metal ahead of time and planning your time so you have time to babysit it and all that. All right, guys? I hope that helps somebody. Again, I appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. Hopefully this is some information some of you can use. And if you do POR, good luck with it. It's good stuff. I like it. I know there's other products out there. You know, you can use whatever you want. But, you know, if you're using a product that's an encapsulator, like this stuff is, it encapsulates rust and seals it. And POR says if you put this on a rusty surface, they supposedly guarantee that it'll never rust again. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what they claim. But no matter what you use, if you use POR or something else, these rules probably apply to just about any product that's meant to do what this stuff does. So whatever you use, hopefully this will help you in the future. Hopefully this video was good for some of you guys. I appreciate you watching. We're going to keep working on this 48. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye. All right, guys. So I'm old, and I suffer from CRS. If you know what CRS is, can't remember. You can have the last word. You know what it is. Anyhow, there's a few things I forgot to tell you. So let me go over those real quick. First thing is I told you guys to go get these quart cans and put POR out of the gallon can in these cans. You know, punch the holes in the POR can and pour it in here. Now, when you got it in here and you're using it, when you're using a brush, what I recommend is you dip the brush in it, but you don't wipe the brush on the side of the can like you normally would with you know, like if you're painting your house or whatever. You wipe the brush on the side of the can to get some of the paint off so you don't drip it over. What I recommend is you dip it in there and then you just shake it like this. Don't get it on the sides because then you'll get POR all around this part, and when you go to put the lid on, you'll never get it back off again. You'll destroy your can. So just dip your POR in it and just shake it like this, or just let it drip for a second before you pull it out. But you know, you're going to want to brush the sides, try to refrain from that. So that's my first advice. If you do that, your lid's going to stick. You're not going to get it back off. So just shake it off inside the can, okay? That's my first advice. The next thing that you have to remember is if you have pieces like this and you have them sitting on a piece of cardboard and you brush all this surface and you have some POR running out, say like last night when I put this, when I was doing these, or not last night, I did these a couple days ago. Excuse me. When I was doing these a couple days ago, I had POR running out of the ends of this, and I didn't pay attention to it. Well, then when I went to pick it up off the cardboard, well, there you go. It sticks to the cardboard. So now I have to get that crap off of there. So if you're painting one surface and it's sitting on cardboard, you want to make sure when you're done painting that surface, you pick it up. You know, you can pick it up from this side that's not painted, and take a rag and wipe off all the excess on it, and then put it on another part of the cardboard that doesn't have any POR on it. Because if you don't, then you get this mess, and I got to get that crap off there. So that's another lesson I had to learn the hard way. So now I got to scrape all that crap off there. Okay. That's the second thing I want to tell you. The last thing I want to tell you is they tell you, POR will tell you, when you put POR on rusty metal, you're supposed to clean it off with a wire brush or blast it. You're supposed to spray it with their metal prep. Then you're supposed to clean it with their cleaner. And then you're supposed to spray it with their metal prep. And then after that, it's ready to put the POR on. Well, I'm going to do a torture test with POR. I want to see how well this stuff holds. This, if you guys remember, this is the cab corners that were down here in the corner of the cab, and they had the big chunks of fiberglass on the inside of them. And this thing it's horrible. It's rusty. The rust is real heavy. You can see how heavy the rust is on it. It's really thick, scaly rust. It's really rough. So I took and I put POR on this part of it, and I did not clean it. I didn't wire brush it. I didn't even brush it off. I just left it the way it came out of the truck. And I literally just put POR right over the top of that rust, because I want to see how well this sticks to metal that I haven't touched at all. So I'm going to do some torture testing on this and see if I can get it to come off. I don't know if I can or not. And I actually got another piece of metal that I did the same thing to. So I'm going to make another video doing a POR15 torture test. So subscribe to my channel, and when I get time, I'll make this video and I'll post it up there, and you guys can see how well POR sticks to rusty metal that's really badly rusted, that hasn't even had any preparation work done to it at all. That's something I'm curious to know. So again, subscribe to my channel, and appreciate you guys watching. And that's it for now. I'm going to keep working on this 48. All right, that's it, I promise. I have CRS. What else can I say? Talk to you later. Bye.